We've been talking about this case involving a woman who took welfare benefits for about 17 years, mother of 6, and then when the state of Oregon figured out that she filed bankruptcy, and in that bankruptcy filing indicated that, at least for a time, she was still married to her husband during the time she was getting benefits. She wasn't qualifying for the benefits that she got, and the state wants $75,000 back from a mom who does not make the money that would pay back that $75,000, not within a expected lifetime. Michael, do you mind if I take a call?
No, let's go for it.
All right, let's go to Tony. Hey, Tony, welcome to the Lars Larson Show. Do you have a question or comment for Michael Fuller?
Well, Lars, I just want to say my stomach is turning. I just can't believe it. Albeit his cause is very noble to support the little guy, but that individual has no business having 6 children. None.
I agree with that, but how would you stop her from having children? Because I'm not somebody who wants the government to start licensing parenthood or child reproduction. So how would you stop that?
If you can't afford the children, you shouldn't have any. Why should I have to pay?
All right, Michael, what's your comment? Because my philosophical belief is, and I've told people this straight out, why did you have another kid when you couldn't afford the kid you already have? And people say, well, I could afford them. I said, you could afford them because you were on the dole. So I understand his point philosophically.
Yeah, it's a fair gripe. I mean, it's not a legal issue in this case, but it's a fair gripe, and that's one that the policymakers can address through incentives and disincentives. But I totally see his point.
Do you think this state, with the politics it has, would ever seriously address that in a way that would make a difference?
I don't know how you would.
I could tell you a way, and it'd be totally voluntary. You're on welfare. We've told you have 2 kids already. You can't even afford them. If you get pregnant again, you will lose some or all of your benefits. However, we can provide for whatever is necessary. You want to get your tubes tied, you want to have a vasectomy, you want to use reliable birth control or even long-term birth control, the 3-month and 6-month varieties, we will provide for that. But if you get pregnant again, we're not going to provide for the 3rd child, the 4th child, the 5th child, the 6th child. Now, you could say, well, that's taking away people's freedom. No, it's not. It's just saying you don't qualify for the program anymore if you keep popping out kids. Would that work?
Well, I would always want to make sure every kid has food and medicine. I think that's important. But maybe you could provide other incentives to the parent that they wouldn't otherwise get. Or maybe incentivize the parents to use birth control and be responsible in that way. But ultimately, I wouldn't want to do anything that would risk denying a child food or medicine.
No, but see, I'm denying it I'm saying up front. Tell the woman, because I'll bet she was never once told by the welfare authorities, by the way, if you have another child, your benefits go down or stay the same. She was probably told when she walked in with the happy news that she was pregnant for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th time, she was probably told, well, when you have that next kid, not only are we going to pay for the delivery, but we're going to up your benefits.
I think you give them too much credit. I don't think they're doing anything at that level. I think they're just taking forms, putting them in the stack, scanning them in, clocking out and going home.
You make these state workers sound like real drones.
Well, I've deposed a few of them. I've seen them I've interviewed them at trial, and I think they're fine people, but I don't think it's, commendable work in these cases what they're doing.
Maybe we should have artificial intelligence oversee the welfare system.
Some form of intelligence, maybe.
Well, because I think about in the private sector, my wife and I took a road trip, as I told you. When we went out of pattern, bang, the credit card, the debit card shut off, and I had to call Chase and say, hey, you shut off my debit card. Well, you're out of pattern. You think that same kind of intelligence, if used from the private sector to the government sector, might help to spot problems ahead of time and maybe even head them off?
Yeah, maybe it could. I mean, I don't know how big of a problem this is and how big of a mark it makes in the state's budget to warrant that type of technology, but certainly, you should do anything that's going to save the state money and while still providing, health care and food to kids that need it.
Michael, realistic expectation, how much is it going to cost the state to prosecute this case against your client?
Over $100,000.
Over $100,000.
If they were a private law firm, through all the litigation, all the settlement conferences, the motions practice, the trial coming up, both sides are going to appeal all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court and back. And then including the collection efforts, well into the 6 figures.
Have you offered to settle it up?
Yeah, I actually offered to cover all of our costs myself out of my own pocket. We actually had a settlement agreement reached, but we did, where my client was going to agree to pay $50 a month for 3 years. Now, she couldn't afford that, so I said, I'll just pay it. We had to get the OS Bar's approval, and believe it or not, the Oregon State Bar would not allow me ethically to pay. Well, and it's there for a good reason, but in this case it doesn't make sense, but you cannot give anything to a client connected to litigation, and so they wouldn't let me pay it. And so I said, fine, we'll just try the damn thing.
Okay. So the Oregon State Bar got in the way. Michael, you are the underdog lawyer, and we appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Lars.
Thanks very much. Glenn.